Okay, here we are. We are getting started with phase two, which is the research phase of Start Your Business in 2021. You can see I've got one of my favorite business people here, Chelsea, and she's going to be talking through the branding piece. We'll just do a little recap of what the program looks like and where we are in the midst of the Start Your Business in 2021 timeline and give um, people just a few minutes to jump on. So, the Start Your Business in 2021 program is a series of 4 phases, walking people through how to start their businesses this year. So, the first phase was the clarify phase. That is where we go through and we talk about, what's your why? Who's your target audience? What difference are you looking to make? How does your business fit into your lifestyle? And really those softer decisions that you have to make that really root you and anchor you in your business idea, but that it's not so much the tactical, it's not the website design, it's not creating your logo. So it's really just kind of decisions that you make in your mind about what your business is going to be and the purpose that it's going to serve. And so today we are in the research phase, and I'm going to be talking through a more tactical side of starting your business. So some of the legal implications, some of the decisions, the permits that you need to get. Diving into that, we're going to be talking about money, so financial considerations. So more of those really tactical things that you can write down and find an answer to in your research. Part of that is branding, which is why Chelsea and I are teaming up. She is totally the expert in this area. And so I wanted to bring you somebody who could give you an idea and shine a light on what you should be considering now as you develop your business and then eventually a brand, a strong brand that comes alongside that business and supports it and lifts it up. And so she is totally the expert there. And I cannot wait to really just kind of introduce you to her expertise and help you have this connection and this resource that you can go to as you build your business. And so that's where we are with phase two. Phase three is going to be build. And that's where you actually go around and you mold and you shape your business into what it's actually going to be. So what I mean by that is having documents that outline what your business is, what you stand for, having, your packages, having your pricing set and your product collections maybe. So actually building out that business and breathing life into it. And then the final phase will be phase 4, which is launch. So we are going to actually take you through and help you launch your business. Really, marketing is the underlying consideration there. And so we're going to be talking about building out, carving out those marketing channels, which ones are right for you, how do you plant seeds and give it the time that it needs in order for your audience to develop this understanding of what you do and who you do it for. We know that we can't just suddenly say, okay, I'm open and expect for people to come and land on our website. We really got to carve out those channels and create those pathways for them to come in, knowing that it takes an average of 7 touch points for people to buy from us. So that's what it looks like. Each phase has 2 weeks allotted for it, and we're starting with a mentoring session. So that's what this is today, meaning that we are officially jumping into the research phase. So I'm here as a resource for you, and now I'm introducing you to Chelsea Tams. Chelsea, do you just want to give them a quick overview of what you do and who you do it for? Chelsea's going to be chiming in the first half as I kind of go through the tactical pieces. So I want you to have an understanding of who she is as a business owner and just kind of be able to get to know her a little bit.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Francie. I'm so excited to be here and talk with you all. I'm a branding expert and really focus on serving small businesses, other creatives, and artists who need support in professionalism with their visuals and their brand and putting together something that they feel confident in putting out into the world. I'm also a practicing artist, and I started my business in the same area as Francie did. So we've been connected for probably 5 years now in building our businesses alongside each other. And I really wanted to come here today to be a resource and to tell you more about things with branding that a lot of times we don't learn about until it's too late. We invest in a logo or we get very deep into branding when we're not necessarily ready. So I'm not here to tell you you need to have a logo or need to have a brand, but I'm going to give you some tips on how to get started on your own before you're ready to move into working with a professional designer.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So thank you for being here. I am I'm especially excited to have Chelsea here because she gets paid to speak on this stuff. And so just this is the power of relationships and bringing somebody in because you know and you trust them and you know they do great work. And so I'm excited to bring her here as a resource. So I want to just kind of start by saying that um, there's a detailed workbook that goes with this. So we're going to kind of cover the scope of this phase today, and I'm going to talk through and add some meaning to that content that was in that PDF. But I do recommend over the next 2 weeks that you dive deep into that PDF and force yourself to think through the answers to these questions. Really, carve out time in your schedule to take a pen and actually write them down or to type in your answers into that PDF because you are going to be developing the thought processes and the understandings, and you're going to have to lean into those questions that you don't know the answers to right now. And that is what's going to help you shape this understanding and this meaning of your business. So when we set out on this journey, we're doing something that we've never done before. We are, carving a path that's never been carved before. And so that can feel really kind of unknown. It can feel like, maybe you don't have a solid foundation under you, but you are building that solid foundation right now. So I highly encourage you to go through and really take the time to reflect and build out those pathways in your brain for what your business is and what you do and who you do it for. And so, let's just get started. So I want to say it's easy when you start into the research phase. The reason why I devoted 2 weeks to the research phase is because, on one end of the spectrum, you don't know exactly what you don't know. And so you try to research everything. Your brain doesn't want you to start a business because it's unfamiliar and it's unclear. And so you try to research everything to kind of hedge your risk so that you feel prepared. And then on the other side of things, it's you don't research anything and you just kind of wing it. And then, 5-6 months down the road, you think, well, I wish I would have known that. And so what I'm encouraging you to do is to take a narrow approach to researching where you dive into a specific question or a specific challenge that you need to figure out and then go deep into that challenge. Instead of researching a little bit of a lot of things, I want you to research a lot of just the things that you really need to decide at this point in your business. So I have a lot of business books on my shelf over here, and a lot of those books will tell you the what and not necessarily the how. So I will say that PDF is going to lead you through a lot of the what, and then the conversation within the group. I encourage you to post to kind of let us know what your questions are with regard to the how, and I can point you in the right direction. If it's pertaining to branding, marketing pieces, Chelsea can point you in the right direction, and then we can help tease through and weave through the how of it all. Okay. So there's no single place to get information, but what I did in that PDF is I listed 10 or so really credible places where you can start to get research. One thing I didn't mention there, I kind of mentioned, so colleges and universities often have access to these really, really expensive databases of information. And so when I put colleges and universities on that list, that is why, because they've got access and they pay for these access to these databases that their students can use. And oftentimes the community and the small businesses in the area can use them as well. So just know that I listed a bunch of credible resources there that I use on a regular basis, or I did use to start my business when I went and sought out that specific information. So let's dive into the first piece, and that's your ideal client. I talked about this a little bit last mentoring session, and we started to get an idea of who your ideal client is because so many of the decisions that you're going to make in your business go back to who buys from you, right? So Chelsea's going to talk about building a brand for the people who buy from you. And when you think about creating a website, it should be developed under the perspective of those who buy from you. What is their experience like? What resonates with them? And so I don't want to sound like I'm beating a dead horse, but I didn't really figure out my ideal client until 2 years into my business. And had I done that sooner, I would have made decisions very differently. But now I see the value. I can see the before and I can see the after. And there's so much value in knowing who the person on the other end of the Instagram feed is, or knowing who the person on the other end opening up my email is, and the word choice that I use, and the color scheme, the brand, that you create for your business. Really, so many decisions root back to that person who buys from you. And so I just want to point out that you are able to cut through the noise, all of the noise that we have around us, the marketing messages, everybody that's trying to also reach the people that you are trying to reach. When you develop a message that resonates with them, you cut through the noise more effectively. And also, knowing your ideal client, it helps you select the right message. It helps you write the email that makes that person say, oh, she really gets me. She really understands this challenge that I'm trying to work through. She really has a result. She can teach me a result, or she can provide me with a product that creates a result that I'm looking for. And then finally, I just want to point out that this can change. Your, details about your ideal client can change, but developing that sense of who is on the other end gives you an idea to start with. And then as you become more informed, you can tweak it along the way. That's how it goes with your whole business. The first year of your business is going to be full of flexibility to change and to kind of jive as you gather more information. But this at least allows you to take the first step forward, which is more important than anything. The second thing that I want to talk through is financial considerations. So under this umbrella falls startup capital. What are you going to use in order to start your business? What does your sales forecast look like? How much money are you going to need to sustain and keep your doors open? So I say this a lot. The Small Business Administration says that the number one reason why businesses fail is because they run out of cash. And a lot of times I've seen that this specifically roots back to misunderstanding how much money you're going to need to sustain your business and overestimating how soon that money will start flowing into your business. Okay, so I see a lot of this. If you build it, they will come. As soon as I open my doors, people are going to want my product. In actuality, you've got to open your doors and analyze and understand how people are coming to find out about you. Like I said earlier, marketing takes time. And so oftentimes we don't start making money when we think we will. And so when that money is not flowing in as soon as you think it will, and you still have to pay for the rent and the subscription for your website and all the things that it takes, your operational costs have to come from somewhere. And so if you didn't allow enough startup capital to cover those operational costs, or you don't have enough savings to cover those operational costs, then you can get in a bind where you don't have the cash you need to be able to sustain your business and keep your doors open. And so this is really, really one of the things that I want to point out. And so the guide walks you through some opportunities for acquiring startup capital. So I bootstrapped my business. And I can speak a little bit to that. I had some savings in my bank account that I used to get a new computer and to pay my rent and, pay my bills and things like that. And there was a point where my business was working, but it wasn't yet covering all of my costs. And so that can be, your margin's very thin and you got to get creative and crafty. And, I think every business owner goes through it. And it's just, I want to point out that often how you manage your money in your personal life is how you're going to manage your money in your business. So now is the time to start thinking about, an emergency fund and spending money that you don't have. If you're, spending extra money and just going out and spending it on things that you don't really need, well, that's often probably how you're going to make decisions in your business. If you're frugal, if you really think through money decisions, if you have an emergency fund, then rest assured that that's also how you're probably going to make decisions in your business. So right now is a really good time to do a money audit and think about if now is the right time. If you are planning on using, savings or just what you bring in on a monthly basis, think about, what you need to start doing, those habits that you need to start instituting now in order to be able to run your business. Chelsea, you got a little bit of financing. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So, as Francie said, I actually received startup funding from Bradley University when I was a senior, and I got $10,000 to start my own business. And a couple thoughts relating to what Francie's saying. One, having that padding and that runway made all the difference in me being able to do what I actually wanted to do versus having to make decisions based out of a scarcity mindset or fear that I need to get clients or customers. So it really gave me that extra runway to do what I wanted to do and gave me really that time to figure out, okay, how do these things come together and work? And you're not going to make money right away. And I think the other thing to think about is how can you build a brand? How can you build your vision to attract the right people so that when you're ready to sell those products and those services, that you have the community and the audience to sell them to? And that's such a big thing that we sometimes forget about. And alongside that is pre-selling things. You don't need to have all of the pieces together in order to do these different tests, like creating an MVP or a minimum viable product for your business and figuring out, okay, would somebody pay for this? And not just asking people, would you pay for this if I started a business, but offering a buy button that they can actually invest in this and then you figure it out. I think a lot of the entrepreneurs that we look up to do this all the time. They jump into it before they're ready. But Francie makes such a good point that you can't jump into it before you're ready and have no resources lined up to support you, or you're going to fall into the trap of having to make decisions where you're not necessarily working on what you like to work on or the business you want to build because you're falling into that, I need to pay the bills. That happens sometimes in business, but the more you can save and build up this padding and this runway for yourself, the better off you'll be to build the actual business that you want to build and this dream for yourself.
Yeah. So you've also done a Kickstarter too, and to kind of gauge the interest of the products that you have. So you got that startup funding. Was it a grant?
The initial startup funding was essentially a grant. I didn't have to pay any of it back. It wasn't a loan. No one got equity. And then I did use Kickstarters to fund specific projects. And I won't get into Kickstarter today, but the one thing I want to mention, because I think it's so important, is that in every Kickstarter I did all the work. And then the Kickstarter was really that last hurdle I was jumping over. People bought into something that existed or almost existed. It was the difference between me designing a book and having it on my computer and getting it printed. It wasn't me asking for money and saying, I'd like you to fund my business so I can get started. I think those ones don't work because we all want to start our own business. We all want to build these dream businesses for ourselves, and people don't want to pay into that, but they do want to pay into seeing that you did the work and then actually help you get over that last hurdle to make it a reality.
Yeah, love that. That's such golden information right there. And that's how business works, right? Like you got to put in the work. You got to be willing to show up when nobody's listening. You got to be able to follow your passion and your purpose without having necessarily all the validation. So you've got to find a good balance between meeting a need that the audience has and also being willing to do it and offer this value up front in order to, get that MVP and to be able to, make it and actually do something. Because you're right, people want to get on board with a boat that's already moving. They want to get on board with a boat that's already moving. And so they want to know that you have that follow through and you do what you say you're going to do, and they can have confidence in your word. So that's really important input, Chelsea. Thank you so much. Other than that, your startup capital can come from small business loan. It can come from investors. There's a lot of ways. So in that package, in that workbook, I provided a great link that you can go in and you can kind of explore your options and then reflect on which one might be a good fit for you. Otherwise, I want to talk about costs. So startup costs and what that looks like. So I listed in the workbook a long list of startup costs that might pertain to you. And you can either write in, if it does pertain to your specific business, you can write in what that cost will be. So if it's email marketing software, you got to go out and you got to do the research to figure out, maybe 2 to 3 email marketing platforms that might be a good fit for you. That's where you go into the group and you say, okay, what do you know about these 2 to 3 email marketing platforms? Help me make a decision here. For example, that's how you can use the community. Okay. So if it's rent, then you have to think about, okay, do I even have rent? Do I need a brick and mortar to start my business, or am I not going to be paying rent and I'm going to operate completely online to begin with? And then in that case, you wouldn't have the rent. So go through that list in the workbook and really think through whether those costs pertain to you. At the same time, be considering whether those costs are one-time costs and they're kind of an upfront investment that you need to make to get started, or whether they're ongoing costs and it's something that you're going to have to be prepared to pay on a regular basis. So if it's car insurance, maybe you need a truck to get around and to go perform your services, then your car insurance is something that you're going to have to make on a regular basis. So definitely think about the costs, go through, and then throw your questions into the community so we can rally around you and help you move through those challenges. Let's see here. So the sales forecast is another thing that I want to mention. And Chelsea, just ironically, I saw that you say that your dad helped you through your sales forecast. A sales forecast is basically your prediction, your projection of how much money you think will come in. And so I actually have my sales forecast right here taped to my window because it's my accountability piece. If I think I'm going to make a certain amount of money at the end of the year, that doesn't just start, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter to reach those goals. That starts today. It starts with the activities that I'm investing my time in today. And so a sales forecast is something that I really think that you should lean in hard to. And Chelsea, I'd love your input on this. But for me, it was an accountability piece, right? So I had an annual goal. I broke that up into a monthly goal. And then I broke that into a daily goal. What does that look like from day to day? How much I'm in service business? So I should be billing a certain amount each day in order to get to my monthly goal, in order to get to my annual goal. And if I'm not, what am I doing about it? If I'm not able to reach that billing goal, what am I doing about it now? And that's where it's like, okay, I'm not at capacity. I don't have enough clients to reach my goals, which means I got to go out and I got to network, or I got to reach out and I got to do, these activities that root in bringing that business in. And so a sales forecast not only allows you to have a realistic understanding of what your spending capacity looks like, but it also keeps you accountable because it outlines those goals and kind of puts your feet to the fire and says, okay, how are you going to do it? How are you going to meet those monthly goals? Chelsea, do you have input on sales forecast?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was kind of forced into doing it from participating in the startup competition, and my dad helped me walk through all of it. He was a VP of sales, so he had the necessary experience to really help guide me through that. But I will say I wasn't great. Being that I'm an artist, it's not an area that I was very interested in starting out. And it was one that I wished I would have taken more seriously after the requirement of the competition, because it to exactly your point, Francie, it does help you keep accountable. And when you have this goal and you're working backwards from it, you're able to say, okay, what do I need to do differently to get to this goal? And for the first maybe year or so in business, I honestly didn't have any financial goals. And I just kind of used that runway to figure out, okay, what can my dream projects look like, and built things out by just doing. And compared to where I'm at today, it's a drastic difference. So not having those goals meant not really knowing what I needed to be doing, or not knowing if I was missing the goal or if I was close to it. And that really comes down and affects your bottom line, because you just don't know what to do, and you don't know really where you're going from a financial perspective. So I remember it was probably about a year into business, and I had been exposed to the idea of making six figures as a freelancer. And to be honest, I was not at the point where I could make that flip and switch and move up to actually making that per month or per day or whatever else was needed. But it really opened my eyes to setting a goal. So I set a goal that wasn't to make six figures, but it was to aim to make $6,000 a month. And that was a lot from just winging it and making anywhere from like $1,000 to $5,000, maybe less. And it made all the difference. I made that goal for an entire year simply because I had the goal and I started doing the things that I needed to do to make it happen. And I don't think I ever would have reached that point just by winging it and not having that direction to go in. And then after that, I was able to up level those goals and continue to move forward. And I think that that was really the turning point. Something that I wish I would have known when I started is it's okay if you don't make the goals, but to have them is going to get you in the mindset and the activities you need to really get closer to it or be on the path to get that. It's not if you make the $6,000, it's I'm starting to act like I'm going to make $6,000. I'm going to do the things needed to get there. And that was such a huge point for me and made all the difference in just going along, randomly trying things. Maybe something works, maybe something doesn't, and really committing to, okay, how can I make this specific goal happen?
And I think it's the single most thing that you can do to take your business from oh, this might be something I can do, I'm just going to see if it works out, to, no, this is going to be my viable income. This is how I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to account that I may make, you don't just divide your annual income into 12 and make that your goal for every single month. Maybe like you said, there's a runway where your goal is $3,000 this month and $4,000 the next month and $5,000 the next month. And you change and you grow and you develop and you take more chances and more risks when you know what works, and then what doesn't work, you take that out, and your sales forecast can absolutely support that. So definitely recommend, if you're like, hey, I'm too nervous to really, put my stake in the ground, my flag in the ground and say, this is what I'm doing. Do your sales forecast and make it a thing, make it a reality. So I'm going to move on to the last few points here, and then I'm going to hand it over to Chelsea to talk about branding. But the industry, when it comes to the industry, the things that you should be researching, look at your competitors. Some people are like, I don't really care what my competitors are doing. But the reason why I suggest this is because it allows for you to understand the perspective that your ideal customer has when they're considering your option or they're considering your competitor's option. You can see gaps in the market. You can see how you can meet that need differently or provide a different experience. And so it's really important to understand the landscape of what others in the industry are doing, even if they're not direct competitors with you. Like, I wouldn't consider a freelancer across the country to be a direct competitor, but it's really helpful to understand how they're running their business and what they're offering to the consumer to have an idea of the value that I want to bring to the table. Also important to look at the industry trends. So what's changing in the industry? How is that going to change in the next 5 years? You can subscribe to trend, subscriptions or emails and things like that that are really pinpointing the way that the landscape is changing in our economy and how that is going to affect your business, your industry. The pandemic is a perfect example. How many businesses had to pivot? How many churches, for example, had to go online and be able to suddenly provide their services online? Well, the companies that were already set to have online services, they probably didn't really need to pivot much. They probably didn't skip a beat. So that's an example of when a huge change can come, what those changes and those trends can impact your business like. So really have a thumb and a grasp on what's going on in your industry. As far as legal considerations go, you need to be considering about what business structure you're going to establish. So when I say business structure, you've heard the terms like corporation or LLC, limited liability company, or sole proprietor, partnership. So these are all legal entities that you can establish, and they all come with different tax implications or your responsibilities as the owner of the business. They come with different legal protections. So a sole proprietor, you and your business are basically one and the same. If you're an LLC, you have protections as an individual, because if something were to happen with your business, somebody would have to hold your business liable rather than specifically you. So I want to say I'm not a lawyer. I am not equipped to give out legal advice. I more so just want to shine the light on this component, that these are decisions that you're going to have to make. And in phase 3, I talk about who to get on your support team, your banker, your accountant, your branding person, your web designer. Like, these are people not necessarily who work under your business, but who will be supportive for you and you want to establish those relationships with, so that you can lean on them and ask questions. An attorney is one of those people you absolutely want to have on your team. I paid an attorney to lead me through the LLC process, and having a relationship with my attorney helps me sleep at night. So that's one of those things. Another thing under legal considerations is permits and licenses. So if you're a business who's going to need permits and licenses to operate, for example, if you're going to have food that you're selling, or alcohol, or if you're going to have your business zoned a certain way, those are all things that you should consider, and your local authorities can guide you in the right direction. In some communities, they have everybody come together. So the fire department can lend information on coding. And then you've got the health department who can lend information on permits and licenses. So in some communities, they all come together maybe once a month, and you can walk into a room and talk with everybody that you need to talk with. So see if that's available in your area. The next thing that we're going to talk through with this research phase is identity. Well, I should say the next thing I'm going to mention is identity. And Chelsea's going to walk through that in just a second. But before that, I want to talk about marketing channels. So this goes back to your target ideal client. Where are they already spending time? If they're not on TikTok, you don't have to build out a presence on TikTok necessarily. Okay. So if they're not on Facebook, so I've heard people say Facebook is for old people now. Don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but I think that there's some truth that the up and coming, generation is not necessarily flocking to Facebook. And so if that's who your target audience is, you might be wasting your time trying to get the perfect Facebook page developed. Even though all the other businesses you see are doing that, it may not be to your advantage to do that. So when you think about marketing channels, think about how your ideal client consumes information. Do they prefer text message or email? Those types of considerations are really going to help you develop an understanding of where you need to be carving out your message and your presence in order to reach those people. So last thing I want to mention, on my website, I have 25 ways to market your business aside from social media. Aside from social media is the key there, because it's really important that you integrate more than social media into your marketing. And that's a free PDF, free download. You can go there. I can post that link after we get off here, but it will get your mind turning about how you can develop those marketing channels. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Chelsea to talk through your branding and creating your identity for your business. And I have heard different variations of this presentation, and I learned something every time. So Chelsea, I'm actually getting out notes, and I cannot wait to hear you. So thank you for being here.
Of course. Before we jump into that, we had a great question from Mallory, which is if we have any wisdom on how to start a sales forecast. She's pretty new and doing this on the side. So where should she get started? I'll let you answer it first, and I can chime in as well.
Yeah, so I will actually just drop the PDF. That's another resource that I have on my website that you can download. So basically, when I do this, I put January through December across the top on the Excel sheet, and then I create the different revenue streams, revenue opportunities down the columns, and then I do a prediction, kind of think through, okay, what's a realistic number? If I'm selling a course for $47, what's a realistic number of people that I can predict will pay for that course in January, February, March? And then I do the math, right? So 47 times maybe 10 the first month, 15 the second month. And then I take that all across the year. And maybe I have services as another revenue stream. And I think that I'm going to be able to get one new client each month for 6 months before I'm at capacity. So what do I have to charge in order to make it a sustainable business for me? And I multiply that across the months of the year. That's how I do it. Again, the sales forecast information, I included a link in there for sba.gov that can really help guide you through there. But I want to keep this conversation ongoing and be able to support you inside the group as well, not just send you out to external resources. It's just helpful to have different input on it.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect answer. The only thing I would add is I think that there's going to be some natural frustration with doing your first sales forecast because it's kind of like a shot in the dark. So don't put too much pressure on yourself to get it right. It's just really thinking through the forward way, as like Francie's saying, of, okay, how many people do I think would sign up for this and purchase this and all these different things? But it's also working backwards from, okay, here's the amount that I need to quit my 9 to 5, or here's the amount that I need to pay for all of the things that I need in my personal life and my business life. And it's thinking through some of those things and getting creative of like, okay, how can I get to that number? So I think it's a little bit of working forward and backwards. There's tons of great resources out there. Francie's got a ton in the group already, but the SBA is another really great resource. And there's free templates and stuff out there too. So just get started. It's one of those things that if you let it intimidate you, you'll skip it and then you'll miss out on a lot of other things as a result. So hopefully that's helpful, Mallory. I will now be sharing some slides with you all and getting into the branding presentation. So I'm super excited to share. Can you see my screen?
Let me add this. There we go.
Perfect. Okay. I just want to make sure we get that all set up so you can see the visuals. I'm definitely a visual person, so that's why I have this as a presentation here. And it looks like everything's working great. So to get started, I love titling this presentation, regardless of who I'm talking to, are you on brand? It is the single most important question that I use when thinking about branding my business, thinking about making different actions, and just working on anything related to my brand. So this is a question you can ask yourself in all different contexts. Is this action on brand? Is this client that I'm considering taking on brand? Are these colors that I'm using on brand? All different things. This is going to be a simple question you can ask yourself over and over again. You don't need to have a fully established brand yet to use this question to benefit you. So just to give a brief introduction again, I started my business in Peoria in 2016 after graduating from Bradley. I currently live in Chicago with my partner, Daniel, and have really worked on building up a business that focuses on my passion, my creativity, and my excitement for all things graphic design, lettering, and branding. But I think what's really important to note is that I've been able to scale my business over the past 4.5 years to 100K per year. And I think that that's really important because there's such a bad reputation around the starving artist mentality and being afraid to get started. Can I make a real living with this? It's very much possible. If I can do it, you can too. And I think most of my success stems back from having a really consistent brand, having a clear vision for myself, and really going after some of the big goals that when I started out, I didn't know if they were possible, but I made them happen because I was very hyper focused on striving for those goals, doing the actions and the habits needed to make it happen. So now I work with dream clients like the Field Museum, and I'm able to sell my art products. And I'm striving for really big things because I have a vision and I've built a brand that I believe in and I believe other people can get behind as well. So let's start out with the simple question of what is branding? The short answer is it's all different things. It's more than your logo. It's colors, typography, all the graphics you use, your products, yourself, the way you show up, any type of communications that you have, sales, promotions, emails, just all of the things that you can imagine tie back to branding. There are so many different elements that you need to consider, but I don't say this to intimidate you. I just say this to say that you can look at all of these things. You can think about all of these things And you want to go back to that question of, is this on brand? Is my logo on brand? Are these colors on brand for what I'm trying to build? It's a question you can kind of go through each of these line items or these brand touch points and figure out, okay, is this going to be helpful? Is this building the vision and the business that I want? I think the most important thing to think about for you right now in starting a new business is recognizing that branding is not a logo. And this may be contrary to what you've seen elsewhere on the internet, but I'm going to recommend that you don't actually start with a logo. And the reason for that is we're starting out our businesses, we're figuring out what works, and we haven't necessarily validated our idea yet. I would definitely recommend against going to a professional designer as your first step because that's not the first thing that you need to do. You need to figure out and validate your business. So you need to figure out who your customers are, who that ideal audience is, as Francie talked about, in these target markets and customers. You don't need to have a shiny, beautiful logo to get their attention. That's not what's going to ultimately get their attention. Are logos important? Of course. I think they're more important for big brands. And when we think about iconic brands that we know, like Nike or McDonald's or Starbucks, they all have really strong branding, but they didn't start off day one with that. So it's really important to do the research and figure out how you build up all these other things that we talked about instead of just investing in a logo before you're actually ready. Having a strong, well-defined brand is so essential. Branding is going to help you showcase all your values and align with the right people. It will also help you determine your actions and responses to challenging situations. I think that's a really big point for branding that we've really learned in the past year is when you have a clear understanding and you can ask yourself that question of, are you on brand? When something like COVID happens and you need to debate shutting down or opening up, the safety of your employees, if you have them, all these things become, in my eyes, a question and a matter of your brand and what you stand for in these values. So having that answer to this are you on brand question in all these areas, from the policies you hold to the visuals that you share, really can help you navigate tough situations and keep you in business because it's going to all reflect back on the target market you're working with, what they care about, but then also what's important to you. This is a great reminder too. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Francie already hinted at this as well. There's lots of resources out there on the what, and figuring out the how of building your business. A really big piece of that is figuring out, why are you here? Why are you interested in learning about how to build a business? And how can you make that the focal point of what you're building? Because that's why people are going to purchase from you, engage with your business, and support you and let you get to that next level. If you just show up as for example, myself, a graphic designer who makes graphic designs and that's it, there's a million other graphic designers you can hire. There's no reason to go with me. And I think that's important to think about as you're building this because we get really confused sometimes on differentiating the what and why. And there's a good reason for that. We're building out what it is. So that's a huge thing we need to focus on too, but don't forget about the why. Make sure that you're dedicating time to separating these two things out and keeping the why the focus, especially as you get into marketing and sharing your business. You also need to channel your passion. I think this is so, so important, not coming from somebody who's used their passion to build their business, but for any business owner. The most important thing to remember is that you can learn and improve all of the business operations. Francie's been teaching you all of the steps to take and how you don't have to do it alone, but you also need to recognize that she can't teach you the passion. She can't make you excited and jazzed up about starting this business. That's all on you. And that's okay. That's where you can shine. And there's resources, paid and free, to help you figure out the entire rest of your business. I find this to be really reassuring because I didn't get into business to become a bookkeeper for myself, manage my taxes all the time, or do all these other things. I'm in business for myself because I'm passionate about creating and supporting female entrepreneurs, artists, and creative people to do what they love doing full time. And that really drives me. And I can figure out all the other things. I can hire an accountant, I can hire a bookkeeper, but I can't hire somebody to make me passionate about what it is that I do. And the other thing I like to mention is that passionate people get press coverage. You don't get press coverage and you don't get noticed from showing up and doing what you're expected to do. You get noticed by your community, by your ideal audience, by others in your network and community by doing things that you're passionate about, that you care about, and that you're going above and beyond, whatever that looks like for you. For me, what that looked like was really diving in deep to supporting the community, doing passion projects and causes that I loved, and really supporting all these different efforts. So this may seem overwhelming to you, and I totally recognize that. Branding is a huge thing to think about. So I want to offer up a free challenge that I have for you to think about some questions to get you started. This is the perfect challenge for anyone who hasn't really dived into anything branding wise yet, or also somebody who feels like they have an established brand but wants to check in and make sure that they're on the right track. So this 5-day brand challenge is going to send you mini lessons about branding to your inbox each day for 5 days. And these are the types of questions that you'll answer. I find that if you're asking all these questions up front, it can get overwhelming. So I've broken it down into a 5-day series so you can really focus on thinking through these simple questions. Also, sometimes they're pretty complex, but they're meant to be simple. They're meant to be the things that you know and can answer without skipping a beat. So thinking about differentiating that what you do in business and why you're doing it, figuring out what your strengths are, and also figuring out what your weaknesses are. So you're not trying to be a brand or a business that you really can't be. A lot of times we look at our competitors, we want to be them, we try to pull on these characteristics of them that just aren't true to ourselves. So thinking through some of those things can be really powerful in making your business work for you and attracting the people that actually care about what you're offering and what makes you different. And then also thinking about the internal and external perception of your brand and figuring out, okay, how do I get these two things to equal each other? How do I know that I'm a very dedicated, hardworking designer? And how do my prospective clients know that as well? And then a lesson I want to share that I think is so important when you're starting out is to always build identity from truth. This is so, so important because there's so many different businesses out there and things that people are interested in gravitating towards and other things that aren't for them. My favorite example of this is thinking about two very well-known businesses, Starbucks and McDonald's. They have very different coffee offerings, but the beauty of it is they both are very, very in tune with their identity and being true about what they can offer. And the beautiful thing is that they both have huge audiences and people that want to support them. That's what's amazing about building your own brand and your business from your own identity and your truth is you will attract the people that care about that and value that. And so just as an example, McDonald's, you're not going there for a fancy cup of coffee. You're going there for a cup of coffee that's affordable, quick, and will get the job done. On the flip side, you're not going to Starbucks because you want a cheap cup of coffee. You want that status symbol, and that's important to you. So that's something to think about is who do you want to be? It's not to say you have to be a McDonald's or you have to be a Starbucks, but there's people for those specific businesses and people. So we're thinking about how do we make sure that we're communicating to everyone who we are authentically so that we attract the people that actually care about that and want to support our business as a result. I like to show this example of a local design from Central Illinois of a bar. So on the left, they created this poster for themselves, and I just felt like it wasn't representative of who they were as a business. So just to prove the point, I re-illustrated and designed the poster, showing what I think lines up a lot better with what they actually offer. So if we just compare the two, you can see that one of these doesn't really showcase a upscale bar or a place that you might go for a burger night, but the other one more reflects the quality. So All In Sons has great meat, great high quality. But if you have this poster on the left with a quick designed hamburger that maybe doesn't even look like a real edible hamburger, that's not going to communicate the quality that you need for this communication of your brand, your business, and what you offer. I also want to show a couple examples of logos I've done because there's one thing that I think we miss as business owners who might need to hire a professional designer. You need to do your due diligence in finding the right person to work with. This is so, so important because not every designer is going to be the right fit for you. So for example, I tend to work with other creative businesses, artists, and entrepreneurs who need that custom design style and something a little bit more feminine or friendly or inviting. That's not for every business. And I think it's important to note that because if you go out there looking for the title of graphic designer, you're likely going to find a designer who can do the work, but might not be the right fit for you in your business. So that's what we want to think about. We want to think about how maybe during this time of building your business, you're not actually going in and figuring out who can I hire right now to create a logo, because as I mentioned, that's not needed yet. But you can think about who would be the perfect designer, and maybe can I follow them and engage with them in a way that we can go back and look at the free resources they have, and I can become the perfect client for them when I'm actually ready to make that investment. I also want to highlight a really simple brand guideline that I made for a client, but I want to bring this up because I think you can do a version of this on your own. And this is a great place to start. It doesn't have to be this fancy. All you need to do is start a Google Doc, most simple form, Google Doc or any type of document that's easily accessible, and start to document a couple key decisions that you're making in relation to your brand. One, what colors are you using? Can you write down the color code if you use color codes, hex codes on the web? Document those to make sure that you have them. Or you can document any other codes that you might need. If you're doing everything in print, you might need a CMYK code. Don't worry about what all these codes mean. Just have a way of documenting what colors you're using. And that might be as simple as saying, I use purple and it's a light purple that's kind of a lavender color, and I use this blue that's a teal. If that's all you know to start with, that is totally fine. But we want to build consistency with this. So documenting that and having that resource for yourself is so, so important. Same goes with fonts that you're using. Consistency is key. Don't make it overcomplicated. Pick a font, stick with it, put it in this document, and use it for everything unless you have a good reason to use something else. These guidelines are not meant to stress you out and box you into not having creative freedom. They're meant to give you that resource for any time you need to create something in a quick pinch or just in general, and you don't have a better reason to try something completely new. So I'm going to leave you with 3 recommended actions that I think you should do today to get started. Today, this week, sometime soon. In this 2-week research phase, you should focus on building your brand through these 3 key things. So 1, evaluate your brand internally and externally. I know you might be thinking, I haven't started the business yet. How do I do that? How do I figure out what people think externally or internally? If you haven't started the business yet and you don't feel like you can answer this question, think about yourself personally and what you can bring into the business. It's so important that you start to figure out, okay, what makes me unique and different? And how do people perceive me? What do they think I would be good at? What kind of business do they think I would start if I started a business? Some of these answers are going to be really helpful in framing your business as a whole, in putting together the offerings you have, and figuring out how you can best serve the people that you already know and how you can best serve the people that you're going to attract. Number 2, make brand guidelines. Consider all of these things and you'll worry about nothing. It can be as simple as starting a Google Doc and putting your logo, if you have one, or just picking a font to type out your brand and your business name in. It doesn't have to be complicated, but start that document and resource for yourself. And then number 3, think about the evolution of your business. Think about where you're going. At what point might you need to hire a designer? Or at what point do you need to have a logo? Some people might need to have a logo sooner than others, but I think it's really key to not start there because you need to have a validated business idea for it to be worth the investment, because you will learn in entrepreneurship that things change very often. You have to roll with these changes. You have to make pivots. It's not always a ton of fun, but sometimes it's so much easier and so much more fun if you're not locked into things that you made a decision too soon, kind of cornered yourself and you're focused on that. So instead of that, really think about the evolution, think big picture and how you can dream and build everything out without locking yourself into any strong decisions that you're not able to change. So I want to share a couple different resources with you. And my general tip for you, and this goes back to finding the right designer, is do some research. Figure out what style lines up with your business, or if not a style, what type of person. Are you an organization or a business that supports women in business? How can you hire a female designer to support you in your mission? How can you hire somebody that lines up with what you're doing and supports your values in a bigger way? So when you do that, there's tons of resources you'll find with those designers, or this really goes for any category of business that can help get you started and put you on the path to working with that person, or to leveling up or reaching that point where you can hire them full time or you can hire them to work on a project. So my first resource that I have for you is if you're an artist or creative business owner. I have my own online community on Facebook called Six Figure Arts Business. The one thing I want to note about this is you do not have to be making six figures to join this group. This group is for anyone who aspires to make six figures, who aspires to make their business their full-time job. It doesn't mean that you have to even want to make six figures. It means that you want to surround yourself with people that are really dedicated and committed to growing their businesses and supporting their passions and turning it into their full-time career or even a strong side hustle that they feel really confident about. So if you're interested in joining, you can request to join at facebook.com/groups/six-figure arts business. The second thing that I have available for any creatives and artists is Self-Made Artist Academy. So the doors for this program are officially opening next week, an exact week from today. And this will be a 6-week program to teach you about the specifics of business in relation to art. So if you know of any artists who could benefit from a program pretty similar to what Francie's walking you through, but is really hyper specific to being an artist and kind of pulling out all that information that maybe feels overwhelming as a business, but really focuses on what do you need to know as an artist and how do you build out these things? How do you build out your product or offerings? How do you price like a pro so you feel confident in charging your worth? All these different things will be covered inside this program. I will also share links in the group if you're interested in checking out any of these different opportunities. So stay tuned. And the best way to get connected on this is to follow me on Instagram at LetteringWorks. I'll also be teaching a free webinar twice next week on the 2nd and the 3rd at 11 a.m. Central and 4 p.m. Central, respectively, on the 3 most common pricing mistakes that artists make and how to fix them. So if you know an artist who could benefit from this and needs support on pricing themselves and figuring out they could just be getting started, they could be far into the process but not feeling like they're charging their worth, or they could be a seasoned pro who just wants a refresher. This webinar is going to help walk through all of these different things and how to fix them, make sure that you're pricing yourself effectively. A couple other things that I have offered on an ongoing basis is one-on-one consulting. I like to mention this not to tell you to sign up right away, but to think about this in relation to the role that a professional designer could play in building your business. You don't have to hire them for the full package, all these branding services, but you can really lean into their consulting option and maybe just hiring them for an hour to help walk you through the specifics of your situation and making sure that you're supported and getting the creative ideas that you need specific to where you're at right now. This is one of the most cost-effective ways to get a professional's opinion, address the specific needs you have without diving into a full project. I love recommending this to people that are just starting out in business because it's a great way to make sure you're on the right path, get that personalized feedback, and know that you're doing okay without putting in all your resources and all your money and all of that runway. The next thing I offer on an ongoing basis is custom design services. So for both of these, you can reach out to me at letteringworks.com/contact. And these custom design services are anything from the logo to full visual branding and identity development. Like I said, you're probably not at the stage that you need this, but if you do find yourself maybe a little further along in business, or you feel like it's a really key piece that you need to build out the business and the vision that you have, I'd love to chat with you and talk to you about how I can help or how I can point you in the direction of a better fit of a designer to help you build out your business. So just to cover a couple things, because I know I mentioned that I do branding, I do education, it's kind of all over the place if you just caught different snippets. But LetteringWorks really specializes in 4 key things. Custom brand development, so that's everything from logos to helping you with your strategy and building out visuals you feel confident in sharing, to custom lettering and artwork that could be for business cards, for products that you sell, all different things that you have needs for, whether that's campaigns or t-shirts or anything in between. I also create my own line of quality art products, which often translates into me creating custom work for businesses. I created custom pins, enamel pins for the Field Museum, and that's been a great collaboration for them to grow their brand and awareness while also having products that they can sell and make money from. And then the last is designs for a cause. I'm very, very much into creating passion projects, into building out all different resources to really proactively direct my business. And I think that that branch of my business has really allowed me to work with more people. So if you have any relation to kidney disease, chronic illness, female empowerment, those are all causes that I actively support through different projects that I have. And I'd love to chat with you about how you can leverage existing resources that I have. Or if you are outside of that, talking about how we could create designs to support the causes that you care about. I'll also have resources coming out soon on how to build your own passion projects. I'm working on a mini course for that as well. So more details to come with that within the next month. So if that sounds interesting to you, definitely connect with me. And I just want to say that the easiest place for you to connect with me and stay up to date on all these different things, get the different links that you need, and all the support, and you can reach out to me and ask questions, is through Instagram. I also have a Facebook page. You can find me at Lettering Works. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. It's pretty easy to find me because of the unique spelling of my name. So just Chelsea Tams. I'd be happy to connect with you. If you do connect with me and you're watching this, please send a little note saying that this is how you found me. I don't accept everyone that requests me, but if you're coming from this presentation, I would be more than happy to connect with you. And we're exactly on time, so this worked out perfectly. I do want to say, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, but I also wanted to provide my contact information if you have questions that might need a little bit more in-depth attention or anything else. You can go to send me an email at hello@letteringworks.com with any questions you have about this presentation, on any offers that I have available, or just direction that you might need in relation to a professional designer, branding, or anything else you think I could help with. I'm happy to be here and be a resource, and I'm so glad that Francie has built this wonderful community of creative people, of entrepreneurs, of budding small business owners to support each other, and I'm more than happy to support you in any way that I can.
Thank you, Chelsea, so much. You're amazing. So inspiring. And not only is your branding information good, but you're such a clean, clear picture of a small business owner, especially female, who's just doing the darn thing. And like, you're intentional and you're proactive about going out, and just, I just love being connected with you, Chelsea. So thank you so much for being here and sharing your mind and your resources. I am going to go ahead and drop the 2 links that I mentioned, the sales forecast spreadsheet. It's not called that, but you can use it in the same sense. And then also the 25 ways to market your business aside from social media. I'm going to drop those in the live right now. And then if you want to drop your course, your website, any other links, that would be fantastic, so that they're easy access right there as people come back and watch. And I just want to open it up to questions. Chelsea, do you have a quick second to take questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, awesome. Go ahead and type questions into the comments. I'll give it just a quick second for people to do that, and then we'll field those questions and kind of team up together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I'll add the branding challenge. I got a request for that.
Nice.
So I will add that to the chat right now. And it's just bit.ly, so bit.ly/on-brand challenge for anyone who's interested in signing up for that.
And I think it's letteringworks.com/contact, right? Oh,
Yes.
you corrected it. Okay, sorry about that.
I know I keep getting an autocorrect that it changes .com to con, and I don't know why it keeps happening.
That's the worst.
I know it, and it's one of those things that it's such a subtle thing that you don't see it happening until it's too late. So then you always have to go back and change it.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions? This was great. I'm excited to have this as a resource that even if people are working right now and they couldn't make that 12 p.m. Central Time, that they can go back and watch, and it'll live in here, and we can continue the conversation as people go through. I also think, early 2021 is a little bit early to be taking action for some people on starting a business. They're really just kind of getting familiar with the new year. So I've mentioned this a couple times. We are going to go through this process again. So, I'm so thankful and excited to empower the people who are ready at this point. But just know, if you're here just kind of listening, we will be going through this process again at a later time. And Chelsea, if you're available at that time, maybe we can collaborate again.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always happy to help provide resources. So if you know anyone who feels stuck but knows they need help with branding, feel free to point them in my direction.
Are you seeing these comments, Chelsea? I'd love a quick consult for a name choice.
Yeah, so I would say the biggest specialty that I have is really in visual design, but I have helped people work through naming decisions and things like that. So I essentially offer consulting on an hourly basis. So if you have a specific question that you think that I could be helpful with, I think working through the name and thinking about it from a branding perspective is a perfect example of that. The best way to get in contact is letteringworks.com/contact. Request that, and I can give you some more information on what that would look like.
Good question. She also said, I don't know if you saw, I'm a professional fine artist and educator. Would love to have a chance to meet with you. So it sounds like connection would be the best next step for you all, because I don't know if she's also the one who asked about the consult for the name choice. But if those are two different people, it says Facebook user. So if those are two different people, then I would, recommend and encourage you to both reach out to her.
Yeah, and if you know any other artists that are in a similar position interested in starting a business, this is the first launch of the Self-Made Artist Academy, and it's going to be the most accessible option that I have for getting started in business, getting started working with me. And I'm super excited to offer it because I've had so many artists come to me, even coming to me saying, I'm ready for a logo design, I'm just getting started. And the sad reality is they're not at the point where that makes sense. And previously, I didn't have a ton of resources of how I could help. So this is my solution to that. I'm so excited to be able to offer a program that can walk you through so many steps of starting up your business, becoming profitable as an artist, and really building out that dream business for yourself. So if you know people that could benefit from that, this is the first time it's going to be offered. I'm so, so excited about it, and so excited to help even more artists than I've been able to help already. So if you know anyone, please send them my way. I would be more than happy to answer any questions and connect them with the resources I have available.
It's amazing, Chelsea. It's such a good example of you seeing the pain, want, need, or challenge and creating a result that people are looking for. And, and as a service provider, I can value so much that you actually have a resource for people to go to and say, here, you can go do this on your own time. You can customize it to you, and also serve other clients who are a good fit for stepping into that full brand creation, full logo creation. You're just so savvy. I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, it looks like that's it. So thank you so much for joining. Keep the conversation going. Chelsea's in the group. So if it's branding related, she can answer those questions. And we've got 2 weeks to focus on the research side of things. Let's dig in and ask those questions and get the conversation started in the community. And after this phase, we're going to be halfway there. So thank you for joining. Have a great day. Bye, Chelsea.